I have spent the last hour trying to get this camera angle right, so you motherfuckers better appreciate it. I posted a thread on my Facebook group yesterday asking if anyone had any questions that they would like to pose to me if I ever did a interview or a vlog, if you will. I didn't think you fuckers were actually going to ask me any legitimate questions, and you did. So now I have the misfortune of actually filming this. It's been a long time since I've done any kind of interview. About 3 years, I would say. And neither of those interviews actually used fan questions, which is probably the big difference here. We'll try to get through every single one that we have. If by chance I happen to butcher the pronunciation of your name, tough shit. Blame your parents. Shouldn't have named your fucking ass Ahmed Yahouf in the first place. The first question that we'll start with is pretty appropriate. It's from Alex Jackson, who asks, how did you get into rapping? I grew up in the 90s, that's how. All seriousness though, that's pretty much how I got into it. Pretty hard growing up to not hear rap on the radio or to see it on television. I mean, I grew up when Pac and Big were still alive. Big L and Pun were still alive as well, but even with those two out of the equation, Pac and Big had such a dramatic impact on the landscape that it was really tough to ignore it. So I listened to rap music, just like everybody else did. It was just a part of popular culture. It wasn't until I got older that I really started to get into hip-hop, more to speak. I had a really good friend that I worked with at my first job when I was growing up, and he happened to be really, really into the West Coast scene. He liked hieroglyphics, he liked MF Doom, he liked a lot of stuff. His musical taste was really diverse, and that kind of rubbed off on me. Battle rap is a completely different thing, though, and doesn't necessarily go hand in hand with hip-hop music. That is something that I got into probably around 2007. A buddy of mine recommends some television show that I think was on MTV where it's basically two guys that have structured rounds and they do your mama jokes. I think that was what it actually was. I forget what the name of the TV show was called at the time, but he suggested it to me and said that I should try out for it or some stupid bullshit. I watched a couple things online, entertained the thought of it, and nothing else came of it. But in the related video section, I ended up seeing my first ever rap battle. That's actually not really accurate. I had seen rap battles before that. I was familiar with 106 in Park. I knew who Jin was. I, like pretty much everybody else, had seen 8 Mile, so I was familiar with the concept of what a rap battle was. I hadn't seen it like this. What I was watching was the WRCs. Thesaurus and Immaculate, to be specific, from the first WRC, where they had battled two European guys whose names escape me at the moment, and they had ended up winning. Now, it was a cool watch, but it really didn't grab my attention so much as what I would then watch shortly thereafter. Marv 1 and Quest Makoti. Now, I don't know about you, it's been years since the WRCs, and more fans of battling aren't too knowledgeable on the WRC. It's referenced a lot with Immaculate and Thesaurus battles more so than it is with Marv and Quest. But Marv and Quest were a team that battled in the Detroit division of the WRC. It was supposed to be freestyle, but most of us know that a lot of guys also went in with pre-written material. Marv and Quest's early stuff in the Detroit division was fucking hysterical. You're watching a battle and you're about to piss your pants from laughing type of shit. Stuff that we really don't see too often anymore. I saw that and I was pretty much hooked from that point on. I watched everything that I could from the WRCs, and then I ended up getting introduced to Grind Time. I followed Grind Time religiously from the early stages all the way up to pretty much when it died. That's really not what got me into physically going out and battling, but it's a huge part of why I even got to that point in the first place. When you watch battles as a fan and you don't do it, there's a lot of stuff that you end up picking up on, whether or not you know how to rap or not. You find out what a personal is, you find out what a punchline is, you know what a rebuttal is, you know what a scheme is if you've been watching long enough and you appreciate it long enough. Even if you weren't rapping or battling per se, you still understand how it works, especially if you're a fan of it. I watched it so much that I ended up exposing my friends to it as well, and it was my friends that suggested that I should go do this. Now, keep in mind, I already had friends that thought that I should audition for a television show where you say very vulgar things about someone else's mother, so that says a lot about me, and that says a lot about my friend. Friend says, you watch this a lot, why don't you go do it? And my immediate thought was, can I do it? Keep in mind, I hadn't gotten a notebook. I had never written a rap before. I hadn't even sat down and freestyled or anything of that nature. But now I'm asking myself, is this something that I can do? So I start asking myself some questions. Do you know how to rap? Do you know how to say very vulgar things about people? Do you know how to write sentences that make sense? Do you understand the concept of making words rhyme? Fuck it, why not? Let's give it a shot. I lived in Las Vegas at the time, and I happened to do a quick search on YouTube to see if there was anything that was local, thinking that there wouldn't be, because I had surely, being the battle rap aficionado that I was, I would have already known if there was a league in Las Vegas where I live, and I was fucking wrong. There was one. I ended up checking out their footage and figured, these guys suck. I could kick all of their asses. I'm not really sure where all that confidence came from, because I was wrong on a whole number of levels. But that early confidence is probably what pushed me towards doing this in the first place, so I'm glad that that's the attitude that I had. So I wrote some stuff, and at the same time I reached out to OD, who is the host of the A-Hat Battles, if you are familiar with anything that I've ever done, which, if you're watching this, you probably have to be. If you're not familiar with him, though, he's the Hispanic-looking guy with the Aquanet that's still in his hair, even though we're in 2015. It was totally cool. I reached out to him through an email, and he said, pay me $75, you can come out and you can battle, and that's about it. I had contacted him in about, this must have been April of 2010. I didn't actually get really serious about it until October. By that point, I had written enough stuff that I thought made sense to me and was funny enough that it could probably work. This was right around the time that Grizzlemania 2 had happened, so if you're brushed up on your history, Ines had just battled Iron Solomon. Grind Time at this point was still alive and well, which meant that the Grind Time style of battling was also alive and well. This is important because it gave room for a fucker like me to actually be successful. In the current landscape of battling, if I were to enter now and rap like I rapped back in 2010, I would have probably gotten laughed out of any venue that I went to. It's completely realistic because battling and how rounds are structured has completely changed from when I started doing it. That's not to say that I wouldn't have been successful eventually, but it would have probably taken a lot more work, especially in the current landscape. Tayyab Hussein, I apologize if I pronounced that name wrong, asks, what's the worst shit you've ever taken? Thank you, Tayyab. That's a wonderful question. That's a tough call. I think that really kind of rests between the shits you take when you're feeling really constipated and you have to try to squeeze it out of your butthole, or the ones where you've got the semi-solid diarrhea shits where every squirt actually makes you nauseous and hurts your stomach even more. It's been a hard time kind of figuring out which one is worse. I took one of the latter last week and it was pretty horrible. Mike Gao asks, are you ever going to use a League of Legends reference if you battle again? I don't know, maybe. I don't plan on it, but I don't really know until I actually sit down to write for a battle. It is entirely possible that I could write a League of Legends reference into a verse, so I'm not opposed to it. Eric Beauchamp asks, what's your favorite Pop-Tart? Probably strawberry. It's a classic. Stay True John asks, how are you so funny? I have no fucking clue. I don't know, man, you just say some off-the-wall shit and people end up liking it or they end up hating it. Keep in mind that for every joke that I've said that people have liked, there were probably 5 or 10 in a battle that did not end up landing. But that's really not a question that I can answer. That's more of a question that you or anyone else that's a fan gets to answer, because you're the ones that decide whether or not what I'm saying is funny to you. Pie Snack asks, have you leveled up your merciless wizard yet, you noob? I'm not going to justify that with a response because your last name is Pie Snack, which means that you were abused by your parents. Obviously your name is Pie Snack. Pie Snack. Pie Snack. That's never cool. That will never be cool. You are not cool. Hamza Atelmuddin, there's no way that I'm getting this name right, asks, do the punchlines really get to you sometimes? No, nah, they really don't get to me. I've had people say stuff about my mom, talk about all kinds of different stuff, and a lot of it has no foundation. It's baseless. It's a battle. So no, not really. I think it's less about what gets said, and it's more about how the crowd perceives it that ends up affecting someone's psyche in the middle of a battle. So, for example, I battled somebody that said something about fucking my mom. It didn't really stick with the crowd, and I thought it was kind of stupid, so it didn't even really register with me. And I battled a guy like Conflict who says that I have a tattoo of SpongeBob on my arm, and even though I don't have that actual tattoo, and it's baseless and doesn't really make any sense, because the crowd laughed at it and they liked it a lot, and it was kind of a momentum shifter for him, it did end up affecting my psyche. As a battler, you start to think, oh no, am I going to come back in the next round? Is my stuff going to be as good as his? That type of shit starts to work itself through your mind. Again, it's really less about what someone says to you, it's more how the crowd perceives it and their reaction to it. That's my observation. Another battler, another individual might tell you that that's not the case and that they're completely immune to being swayed by the crowd. I think that's total bullshit. That has an effect on everybody, and you see it all the time in battles. Go ahead and watch DNA and Ness from Summer Madness 2, and you can see how the crowd's reactions got to Ness. Somebody says that they fucked my mom and there's no reaction. Well, whatever, it's corny. But if somebody says it and then the crowd goes nuts, it's going to have an effect on me. Tanner Flowers asks, what is it like before a rap battle starts? From my experience, it's hot, sweaty, and it smells like weed. Weed and cigarettes and alcohol. Seriously, it's a bunch of people hanging out with each other in a confined space a lot of times, and it ends up getting really fucking hot and really uncomfortable. If you're trying to remember your material the night of or right before a performance starts, it can get pretty nerve-wracking, and I've been in that position before. So before the battle starts, you can get really nervous. And for me, my nervous energy is all over the place. Some people are a lot more calm, cool, and collected. For me, it's kind of hard to contain it. Getting into the battle, that's when all that really kind of goes away. I've been more confident with the material, and I've practiced it a lot more, or I've put more time into the writing process. The nerves are less apparent. A lot of times for me, it's not about whether or not the crowd is going to like my stuff. It's whether or not I'm going to fuck it up. Get tunnel vision when they call your name and you walk into the circle, or you're walking up on stage or anything like that. You don't acknowledge that everybody else is around you. None of that matters. You don't remember any of it. The guy or whoever you're battling in front of you, they don't really matter either. Neither does the host. Nothing. You're focused on just a couple of things. Maybe your intro if you've actually practiced it, because some people do that. And then just remembering the first couple of words for your verse to get you started. Hopefully, the rest of it will just come naturally. Think about any battle, that's what it's always been, is the tunnel vision. Von Hippel asks, when are you rap battling again, son? Good question, Dad. I don't know. Hopefully sooner rather than later. There's always opportunities, so let's make no mistake of that. It's just a matter of whether or not that opportunity is feasible. It's very convenient living near a league and being able to travel 5 minutes to be able to do a battle, which is what I used to do. It's 5 minutes from the boxing gym where all of the A-hat battles take place in Las Vegas. Walking distance or even shorter driving distance, so of course it was extremely convenient to be able to have that at my disposal. We're in an era now where you're flying across the country to do a battle, or you're going overseas, or you're driving 8 to 12 hours to be able to fulfill a commitment. That's a lot harder. So it makes the accessibility a lot harder too because of that. Not making an excuse, not saying that I don't want to do it. I've spent the last couple of years writing and just trying to evolve the way that I actually go about battling. If you compare the last battle that I did, which was a 2-on-2 in Texas, to any of my older material, you will see a huge difference. It's an accessibility thing. Hopefully I will be able to do it again this year. A big part of that also rests on the shoulders not only of myself, but of the fans. You want to see me battle? Go to the leagues and request it. Bring my name up. Let's keep the persona of who I was battling relevant. A resurgence in popularity for a guy that hasn't been battling in a long time is not unheard of. It takes one good battle, and that's it. Lastly, Marshall Shakur Naz, good name, asks me what my top 10 video games are. That's a tough question, and I don't think that I'm ever going to have an accurate answer for that. I play a lot of different stuff, and I enjoy a lot of the games that I play. But for the sake of answering the question, I guess I'm going to pick the stuff that's stayed relevant to me throughout the years, be it due to nostalgia or whatever the case may be. These are just games that are really good and have had an impact. The shit out of them, the replay value is through the fucking roof, and that's why they ended up making the list. They're not in any order, though, because I think that would take a lot of time for me to try to put them in any order, and they would flip-flop constantly. Metal Gear Solid, Final Fantasy 7, 8, and 9 are all definitely up there. Streets of Rage 2, Mega Man 2. I can't not put Counter-Strike on the list because I've played so much of it throughout the years and I've constantly gone back to it, so that's definitely up there whether I like it or not. I was going to put Castlevania Symphony of the Night on the list, but then I decided that I actually like Castlevania Circle of the Moon better, which was for the Game Boy Advance. Super Mario RPG and Super Mario Bros. 3, I would say, round out the list. You ask me that question any day of the week and I'd probably give you a different set of answers, but you would still probably catch a couple of those on that list. All right, so that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel and go ahead and follow me on Twitch too if you liked this. And feel free to ask more questions because I'm not opposed to doing more Q&As in the future. Pie snack. Jesus Christ.